and welcome to this lovely episode of Silver Scraps. This is week 2, but we're going to call it week 1 because we're only concerned about week 1 right now. With me today, I am Leper Koopa, though. I am in the lovely PNG down in the bottom left. I've got Arcs in above me, I believe, and a Bickle to the right of me, and that Decker guy returning in the other corner.
Good to be here, everyone. Arcs, you done with your pizza? It looked fantastic.
It was a Mount Buffalo chicken pizza.
God,
Ooh, lucky you.
I'm so hungry. What are we doing here, Leper? What's the what's the purpose?
Well, since you are hungry, we are going to make this quick. We are going to do a live power ranking of all 14 teams.
Something tells me this isn't going to be quick.
It doesn't want to be quick.
It's probably not going to be quick, but we can pretend just for the sake of Decker.
But
it never
if
is.
If his food gets done, he can eat while we're arguing with each other.
True. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It'll be basically the equivalent of popcorn.
And I know that Bickle and Arcs are new to the Silver Scraps universe, but we do not put a lot of thought or logic into these predictions. So really, just go with your heart. Just whatever you're feeling. No one's gonna get mad, right? Leper and our experience, no one gets mad.
Well, no, they get mad all the freaking time. Excuse my language.
Bro, I don't get mad.
The amount of DMs I have gotten over the years, which was, well, you said this about my team and this wasn't actually true, is rather high. So please don't do that.
Yeah, just because
anytime we watched it, we just laughed at it like, oh my god, they're either completely right or please stop cursing us.
The only authority that we have is that we are putting this out on YouTube. That is it.
You're just not allowed to bash my team more than myself.
I don't talk about my team, so it's really hard to bash it more than I do.
It's fine. I've got plenty to say about your team, Leper, so we can get to that.
Oh, that's good. We haven't played a game. We'll get to that, though. So,
your stats real quick.
With that, right, we have 14 teams to talk about because, unfortunately, some of you have changed your names. I'm looking at you, Subatomic Gaming Antimatter.
Hey, the whole thing.
Formerly known as Knights of Thunder.
Which you're going to stick to the entire... I want you to add of the organization Knights of Oblivion.
Knights of Oblivion.
Okay, we can do that when we talk about Subatomic Gaming Antimatter, formerly known as Knights of Thunder, which I believe is part of the organization Knights of Oblivion.
Perfect.
There we go.
It's going to be a good episode.
Absolutely. So,
I'm going to keep a counter
because overall, the BOL staff have continually had to change team names, logos, and so on, not just in IBS, but in other divisions. We do not have logos, so we just get to have some text on the screen.
And some squiggles.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I like the squiggles there, making it really, really nice. I'll be honest.
So, rather than just where our list is going, and I'll be updating it live, we are going to have week 1 Blue Pup League power rankings.
Blue Pup League? That's fantastic.
Blue Pup League.
Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom, right? Is that the consensus? So.
And I'm assuming that you're reading my mind here, and we're going to be talking about Glacial Academy.
Yeah, I think Bickle, Arcs, y'all push back, but to me, looking at their roster on the dock and seeing most of it being red and orange, and then the fact that they e-subbed 3 different players, Bickle, is that right?
I believe it was 2 e-subs. They went for a different one earlier that got denied, which caused them to delay the first game long enough that it was marked as a forfeit. They went on to win game 2 with the e-subs before losing game 3.
Well, what actually happened was they couldn't find an e-sub, and so they forfeited game 1, but the other team hand shook and let them have till like the next hour to find an e-sub so they can play the rest of the series.
I see.
It was supposed to be a whole series forfeit.
Well, good on whoever their opponent was. Who was that? We shout them out.
Some sportsmanship.
That was
Eden's Blazing Stars.
Good on you.
They're going to be higher up the rankings solely because of their sportsmanship.
Yep, I'm moving them up my rankings right now.
I already like you guys.
All right.
So from there,
Glacial obviously play games and we'll move you out. Like, we're not saying that Glacial can't win games, right? Like, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that if you show up with your 5 players, we'll probably give you a fair shake. And we'll see. Hopefully that will happen this week. Who knows?
Unfortunately, players of Glacial Academy, we are collectively biased against you due to your org's history of FFing, e-subbing, and in general having a high amount of roster instability.
Now we get to the spice.
Okay,
Who
so
is the
for
worst team
me,
that's playing games?
I have Subatomic Gaming Antimatter, formerly known as Knights of Thunder, we believe of the organization Knights of Oblivion. Purely because they have a really, really long name and haven't played a game yet.
They're already showing roster instability with multiple roster changes.
What were their changes? I think I missed those.
They changed junglers. I know that.
Okay. So right now they have I Hate People. Is that their current jungler?
That is, he found Eden's Blazing Stars.
Oh, I'm being dumb. I'm sorry. They have Blop. Is that right?
That sounds right.
No, that's their mid. I can't look.
Blop sounds right. Prince. Prince Sticks, who is an ADC
Prince Sticks
player.
used to be their jungler. That he's moving teams now.
Okay.
And now I think OST is their jungler. If I'm remembering right.
Yes, who from the organization Knights of Oblivion is there. Like, he's their jungler. And this is so long that it's not going to fit on the screen, guys.
That adds to it to me. So Knights, they're the one that got the jungler denied as a roster change. Yes. I am on board now. Did you guys see that 2 days ago?
Yes. They added somebody, they got denied for some reason.
Yes.
That is not
no, that would be because for a variety of reasons. Let's just say don't have 30 plus alt accounts.
Yeah, we don't have to get into that, but so I think that's fair. I think that's any pushback anywhere else. I think that's a fair.
Yeah, and it's simply so the team that I put right above them is Revolution Anarchy. Also, they haven't played a game.
Well, I wouldn't put them there, but that's okay if you want to. They go higher up.
We're only concerned about week 1. They have no results.
If we're only basing things off of week 1, it's okay.
We're only basing things off of week 1.
In that case, yes, this is fine because we have no knowledge of this team whatsoever. If we're taking this from an objective, this is what we've seen in the league, and we know nothing about them.
The point of this is to kind of what we've seen in the league, right? Like there is no data of them in the league, right?
We'll go into our hot takes then next week. Then, right?
Yes, we're gonna do full irrational predictions next week. With a new twist, we're going to be including playoff brackets.
Okay, so let's do them a little bit of service. If we're going to just slot Revolution Anarchy there, let's look at their roster.
If we're going to do this, we need to talk about Subatomic Gaming Antimatter, formerly known as Knights of Thunder, we believe, from the organization known as Knights of Oblivion.
I like that it just runs off the screen. I really do. Well, yeah, I mean, we a little bit. I mean, we guess, I guess we don't know who their jungler is. Right, because
we do. It's OST, KO Vesuvius.
Oh, okay. Oh, got it. All right, I'm following. I'm going off the denial, but we've had some swapping go on.
Yes. After that, they brought in,
So Prince Sticks is gone, and that's the change, right? So it's my understanding is that it is this roster with OST, aka KO Vesuvius, as the jungler.
So do they have an exception? Because Prince Sticks was their exception player, correct?
They will not have an exception player, I do believe. Okay. Or if they do, it is OST.
I always get nervous about teams that don't have exception players. So
I think that's understandable. But I guess for me, it depends on where you have your exception player.
Right.
Jungle is a very, very high value exception player.
Agreed. I think to me, Jungle and Top are probably the strongest 2 exception players.
I think that has more to do with in IBS how teams don't know how to deal with a strong top laner rather than the role itself being strong. But that's a different discussion we can have.
It is. Any other
I think
thoughts?
that this team has potential to show. You know, I I don't know, right? It's a lot of
think-
different players from different orgs and different teams thrown together, and I don't know how practiced or polished they'll be.
It's a lot of unknowns thrown together into one blender, and not having seen them play week one is why they're this low. It's not we think they're awful, it's we have no idea.
So we'll say this, Bickle, if you just like were forced to pick who is going to be a consistent performer for this team, who are you looking at?
I'd say AOST, Vesuvius.
I would say Blob.
The Lilia is definitely a pick that you should watch for.
Absolutely.
OST Lilia is a very scary thing.
Right. Okay. Do we want to move to Rev?
Absolutely. So in the same token, Revolution Anarchy, less roster instability, hasn't played, just one higher. It's interesting to say Glacial Academy is so unstable that they are below teams that have not played.
I personally have Knights of Thunder higher because Leper is the mid laner for
Valid. We can absolutely switch this around if we agree on that.
So I am a big fan of the bot lane for Anarchy. So Titan Brawler and Yes Parade. I've seen Yes Parade play in the past. I've always thought they were a good player. And then with them being paired with their exception player and Titan Brawler, I definitely don't think that this team will stick in 12th place for the power rankings.
I will, as mid laner for this team, I will do my best to prove you wrong.
Let me double check something.
You'll say you'll do what? I missed that.
My best to prove you wrong.
Oh, great.
If that character has a pull higher than 3 champions this season in BOL, then we're already underestimating you.
So there is one thing I will say about Revolution Anarchy, and that is I have one concern for them, and that's what happens if their 80 carry keeps playing at the rate he is, at the skill he is. He's going to hit gold 3 with a good enough win rate that he's gone.
Yes.
And that's a concern, because Valor is good. Valor is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. That's always the concern of the rank out, and hopefully we have teams in here, and I believe that Revolution is one of those orgs that would not, like pressure their players into staying where they are.
In fact, we're all encouraging him. So if he ranks out, he's destined for a place on a Revolution Gold team. So it's like
I have an ADC for you if you need one. If he ranks out,
we'll talk if that happens. I think we have plans, but like it's definitely something that internally we are aware of. So,
all right,
number 11. What do we got?
I think this is a really iconic pick.
Okay,
what I mean.
I'm gonna go a different way because we're basing this purely off of week 1.
I have iconic up so high.
I don't. After watching and talking to Merritt from his week 1 game, I can say that the team is not in a very good spot.
I mean,
Maybe
they did just have a coaching thing.
A what?
So let me get this. They played against Whooper Academy, right?
Yes,
they
played
got
against
2-0'd by Whooper Academy. Both pretty. We had like a 30-minute game to 40-minute game, so it looked like kind of a slog in those matches. I mean, game 2, you looking at the stats, I obviously didn't watch the game. I don't know how that game went to 40 minutes. It looks like it wasn't close at all. But obviously, if a team is able to hang on having a deficit for that long, there's some potential there.
We watched Iota just the other night take 40 minutes to win a game by being up 30 kills.
I think they were up like 18K at one point.
It was 30 minutes, and they were at 21K or 17K lead at 21 minutes.
I take it back. Put them there. Whatever the spot this is, put them in that spot.
We can't do that if we're looking at Blue Otter week 1.
Yeah, we're looking purely at Blue Otter week 1.
Looking at this, it makes me really curious how they did lose the first game, right? I also go and looking at how the other game, why both of these, it looks very, very long for Wooper Academy to win.
My argument for this spot would be Hyperion.
That's
I
where I
think.
was going.
I would
So-
also put Hyperion here, simply just
We've-
because FF.
Because it's based on week 1 having. Well, I can tell you what's going on. Their top laner, unfortunately, has a concussion, and we found
Right.
that out really late, so we had to get an E-sub in that section. And the E-sub had their computer overheating, which is why he was DCing for quite a while at the beginning of the game.
And then
And our jungler had unstable internet, was DCing every 3 minutes. So,
so
those games were great.
can we say, in all fairness to Hyperion Galaxy, unfortunately, despite some living situations and circumstances being outside of your control, internet issues do need to be fixed for you to climb up the.
I can already tell you
rankings.
it has been fixed.
Oh, good. You are the coach of this team, so
Yes, I can tell you this has been fixed.
I actually have Hyperion at 8, and it's
Even-
solely because
Really?
when I was because I casted the game, and their bot lane
Yeah.
did beat the crap out of GSG Iotas.
Right. You're 100% correct. I mean, the game, if it was a 5v5, the game would have been at worst close.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes, I'm very sad the internet issues happened because I think this was looking like it could be a really good game
So
based solely off the bot duo plus mid. Like, focusing on those three, this was really close. What broke open the game was the fact that GSG's top laner got a free full tower by
just
10 minutes.
Set like haymaker
Yeah.
in the tower for
Which
10
is
minutes.
Which is
Exactly.
hilarious.
let's do this just because we are doing this live, right? We don't have to cement ourselves into this position right now.
Okay, that's fair. We can start
So
going
that
over things.
We're just going to move our way up a little bit, and then I know that we're going to have a reshuffle.
Yeah, then we'll start arguing and moving
Because
things around.
I personally would put, like, just me, one game played does not a series make, right?
Yeah.
I would put Iconic right above this.
I would
Yeah,
put Iconic
I think-
at 10.
Yeah, I think that would be acceptable. I have Iconic higher, but it's not based on week 1. It's based on what I think that they will do later on.
Right. And that's fair.
Getting
And that's,
2-0'd is never a good look.
it's never a good look, and I think that we can apply some adjustment to this at the end, right? But right now, at least for the base, I do want to just focus on week 1 and then apply our biases from there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about those rosters so they get some airtime. We can start with Hyperion since we put them lower.
Hyperion.
Bickle-
Oh, you.
No, I was gonna say, Bickle as
Bickle's
the
the coach.
expert.
Shush. We got this. We'll talk
Okay.
about his
Oh,
team.
right. We don't talk about with facts. This is a good point. Good
Right,
point.
right.
Yeah.
So
Not talking about with facts, completely objectively looking at this from an outside perspective where I have no idea what is going on with them. Got
right, exactly, yeah. So you really only have one veteran presence here in Hortensia. I think this is
Yes.
a role swap for Hortensia, because at least I don't know. They look like a field player, honestly.
They play kind of everything.
Wales, I know, has been with Hyperion for a hot minute. I believe. If they are the player that I am thinking of, they have been with them for a while.
I think you're thinking of someone else.
I'm probably thinking of someone else. Some sort of sixth sense tells me that I am thinking of someone else.
So I always love to see bot lanes. Obviously, like I'm a bot laner, so like that's where I like to focus. And this, I think of this is my bias coming in. I think that One Hand and Squad fam have good synergy together at best. You know, you can say what you want about their individual play. And Squad fam, like Being's bronze still is whatever. Like they play pretty synergistically. So they kind of got handled in this 2v2, and it really is pretty looking up for Hyperion to look to play some strong bot lanes. I think we've talked about this before in the past, Leopard, but if you look at IBS teams that typically do well, that aren't like have sketchy players that are pushing boundaries, typically you look at who has the strongest 2v2 in the bot lane because it's really difficult to win 2v2s in IBS. You usually have jungle influence or lane influence.
The teams
I think
that
they're gonna
have
be
been winning leagues and or dominant, right? Primarily due to a strong top side and play like weak side bot is much, much fewer than teams that play strong side bot.
Right. So I'm excited to see this team play with their full roster, and
Absolutely.
we should. Who do we have this week? We have a bye week for them, so
They are
that's
on a
sad.
bye
Oh,
week this week, which is
that's so
luckily because
sad.
their top laner still has a concussion.
Oh,
Hopefully they
But he'll
are
be
all
back
right.
the next week.
being risen into the heavens right now with the sun.
we have ascended arcs in the window now. Okay, so iconic. Anybody wanna
Iconic
hop into
is much more veteran by comparison. Minami, Nub the Scrub
Okay.
played together in EDL for Donut Shop Chocolate with me and another player not in this league, and another player not in this league. So yeah, that's that. Merit Lodge, the Merit Lodge, named after a Magic the Gathering card.
known quantity?
Veteran IBS jungler, very, very unique play style, right? Very, very demanding of how he wants the game to be played. Alternative Crow, a veteran of the competitive scene longer than me. This is his second split in top lane.
Cool. Any other thing to add? Anybody?
I think this is one of those teams where a lot of things depend on what page they are on. You have a lot of veteran players, and sometimes an issue that does occur when you have veteran players, particularly ones that are not the most assertive as individuals, I'll say it that way, right? You can often end up on different pages. So I think a lot of where this team does, from my perspective, is more on iconic staff and coaching on what direction they are able to get this team to go to.
Okay.
Time will tell how they
Time will
bounce back from
absolutely
it.
tell.
Yeah, they got O2'd. Time will tell how they bounce back. Coaching changes can be positive, can be negative. We'll see how it reacts in the end.
And
So
with
Who do they play this week?
They play because
Got it up right
You gotta pull up.
here. Well, I had it up. They play against Revolution X, which should be a difficult match for them.
That's
boy.
a difficult
That's,
match for them.
Good
That's
luck.
a hard one.
So based on what we're talking about so far, we have two teams left that are 0-1. So we have FTD and
FTD.
GSG Psy.
You know,
Well, so
We also have
Did I
Wait.
miss one?
just
Stack Bears.
O2. Yeah, SNC Sunset Ravens is also 0-1.
Oh, cool.
So for
Cool.
Which,
me,
funny enough, is my team number 9.
Really?
Mine is GSG,
Mine would also be GSG.
and I think that's solely because since we know something outside of
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's
we
just
know facts about.
my thing is SNC Sunset Ravens went to 3 games against Revolution X, whom I think is probably the best team in the league as of week 1. So
Probably.
that to me is a mark in their favor. So I have to put them at the top of the 0-1s in my brain for that reason.
I can see that. I can give you that. That's fair. Yeah, so I can see you going GSG here.
I think for me personally, knowing some of the things here, okay, just to be safe, to be fair to Subatomic Gaming Antimatter, formerly known as Knights of Thunder, we believe from the Oregon Knights of Oblivion. I need to spell Goon Squad Gaming Psi and not GSG Psi. Yeah. I am personally wanting to put GSG Psi lower than SNC Sunset Ravens.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can see that.
And a lot of that is just due to some of it behind the scenes knowledge of rosters fracturing in the middle of game.
Yeah, I was not trying to take that into account with it.
Oh,
but
of
if we're
course.
taking it into account,
I account for that stuff all the time. But then again,
Okay, then
me
yeah.
as a person,
3-9.
I am super, super biased towards roster stability. Both like as a person, it's something that I value when I'm on a team, of the roster being stable, the organization being stable, right? I also value it from a content creator perspective. It's really freaking hard to make content about a team that is constantly changing the roster. Like, I don't know. Hey, how is Bickle from the support gonna play with a new jungler and a new top laner again? This is the third time this split. Like it's not terribly exciting. But that's my biases.
Well,
That's fair.
Let's talk about Psy for a second.
Yep.
And I guess we'll just leave it to Bickle and the Leper since both arcs not going to have a,
Well, you've got Pac, right? And overall, Pac is a wildly variable top laner. When he is on, he is competing with the likes of Raining Wolves, Terriermon, Zedekiah, some of these other top-tier top laners. When he is off, he is definitely not at that level.
And to be clear, we did. It was a 3-game series versus Tenebris Esports Aeon.
Yep.
So not a 2-0, was a 3-1.
Not a 2-0, no, and
it was
and
a competitive series for sure.
And especially with what you have, right? You definitely there are good things going forward, right? This is not to say for me. I think that there's a bit of a dividing line between our bottom tier, you know what I mean, and this is firmly in what I would consider a mid-pack tier.
Yeah. We've crossed over that barrier of there's a bottom, a middle, and a top. We've crossed over that bottom to middle barrier.
And for me, the bottom 4, right, 14, 10 and below are the bottom tier for this week, right? Because these are the teams that we don't really have data about, right? I can see Iconic being solidly a competitor here. Same with Game Squad Gaming Psy. I have very few teams right now where I'm just kind of I don't know. Maybe 6th might be your best shot, right? I don't mean that as an insult. I see very, very few of that at this point in time.
So we can move on, I guess. So the 2 we have left would be FTD and SNC Sunset Ravens. Is it fair to say that we think that FTD probably goes in this spot?
Yes.
Yeah, O2 is always rough, even if it is against a very strong roster.
Absolutely, and it's not to say that Feed the Dream is not a strong roster. It just really, really is. You played into the Super Square win condition, and the Super Square win condition happened.
Right.
Yep.
To me, this is honestly FTD. This roster: Tame, Chubby, Puffin, Ghost, and Mystic Azzy. I am really excited to see this team play. It's a lot of names that I know personally, and seeing Chubby swapping to jungle makes my heart happy. I'm excited to see him playing on that role because I know he wants to. Seeing Puffin back, is that the same Puffin I'm thinking of?
That is the same Puffin you were thinking of.
Haven't heard from Puffin in over a year at least.
He took a very long break.
You got to do that sometimes, man.
Yep.
You do. So. Yeah, I'm excited for this roster. I definitely don't think there'll be a bottom half team, but it just going off week 1 is kind of what we got.
I personally think that Feed the Dream has probably one of the better supports, but on the flip side, I think they have one of the worst ADCs.
Okay.
I think Ghost Machine is very subpar when it comes to doing anything outside of being just there. If you put him on Ashe, you'll probably do something. You put him on a carry champion, you will lose the game.
I think
the fair way to say it, and it's a criticism that I've leveled at Ghost Machine for years now, is that he is simply just a slight facilitator. He's a facilitator from the AD carry position. If the team is doing poorly, he's not going to put the team on his back. If the team is doing really well, he's going to contribute to that direction, right? He's not, and he will deny this to the ends of the earth. Yeah. I don't see him warping a team around him. But that being said, consistency is his strength. He is, in general, very, very consistent, for better or for worse. It's hard to see him have an off game, but you don't often see a pop-off game either.
I don't think this roster needs anything but consistency from them, honestly.
I think just from knowing them and having played on the literally previous iteration of this team that just got eliminated from Aegis last Friday.
Sorry.
It happens, right? It happens.
Well, I was really hoping they would win again.
Forming some sort of identity and knowing what champions people need to be playing and how to play that draft out, I think is the most important thing for Feed the Dream. If it takes too long for them to figure out what sticks, we might be seeing Feed the Dream at this level for the rest of the season.
Not just that, I think a big question for Feed the Dream is the level they are at is often dependent on how much effort and how seriously they are taking things. Feed the Dream has very much gone up and down, like, okay, we're taking this extremely serious, and then they start popping off. It's like, we're here for fun.
Right. And it goes back and forth, right? And that's something that only that team can answer. And I think that puts us number 7 at SNC Sunset Ravens. We've got a lot of long names here.
Yeah. Oh,
We do. I'm glad that ours isn't the only one.
Do
What
we
does
need to be
SNC stand for?
I don't
Snack
know.
Bears.
Snack Bears.
Of
Is
the
that Snack
Snack Bears
Oh, I guess
organization,
the
is
logo
that
jumped in.
better?
It says Snack Bears.
Is
Of
that
the snack-
better?
Yes. Thank you. It
That
makes
is
me feel
very
better.
much better.
Okay.
They generally
mean-
produce really strong supports.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
agree.
just like,
This team is not a bottom half team. This to me is a top 3 team. I really do. I think so. I think they're going to be in the top 3 once we get into the later weeks of the split. That's not. Wait, we're not talking about that. We're talking about week 1.
yeah, we won.
I can't. I'm looking forward to next week. Okay, I'm really excited about it.
The question that I have, and I don't mean this offensively towards SNC Sunset Ravens, is: did Raining Wolves have an off night, or is Clerk or Duck? I don't know how to say this.
Clucker Duck or whatever the hell his name is.
Murdoch is
That
the,
makes way more sense than me trying to Kluk.
No, I think it's Clucker Duck.
Clucker Duck makes sense now that I'm reading it.
Duck is actually the sub player.
Right.
So
just looking at when you have just on paper from match history, right?
Yeah.
A top laner I have never heard of, significantly ahead of Raining Wolves. I am very, very interested.
The one thing I will say, I think you're talking about game 1. I don't know if Raining Wolves actually plays Trundle. Because I don't think I've ever seen it.
I don't know, right? I don't know. And Tom Kench is a very difficult matchup for Trundle as a Trundle player.
You did see in the game 3 where I would say that Raining Wolves to me one of the champions that comes to mind for them is Mordekaiser. So you did see once they were on Mordekaiser, they were putting up a lot better numbers.
Absolutely, and
across the board.
And that's not to take away. And it could just have been jungle influence. Sure. It could have been a lot of different things, right? And so it makes me excited to look at SNC Sunset Ravens of the Snack Bears organization going forward. Especially given the performances that they put up throughout the night, right? Clucker Duck looked very good. SNC Big did a huge amount of work. I think looks like game 2, when they lost, he was deathless. No, they won. Never mind. Deathless on Shyvana is still huge, given where that champion likes to play, right? So much of the team's success seems to have been from SNC Big getting things done. So I'm just interested to see where things go as time goes on. But I think it is.
My guess is this looks like a team that's going to be mid-jungle focused between SNC Big and SNC Grim.
Yes. Given the picks that they're pulling out, absolutely.
Raining Wolves, to my memory, is not a player that requires a lot of attention, generally. And their bot lane is not something that I'm super familiar with, but does look strong on paper.
What bot lane?
For
Amazing Spice and...
Well, no, I meant what bot lane played. He played a Mino.
Stop that. Oh, man.
So that brings us to the end of the teams that lost or did not play. So now we have 6 teams that won.
Slash did play, but yeah.
Slash did play. And this gets a lot harder for me from here, right? It's somewhat easier to, especially in week 1, to look at the teams that lost and say, these were bright spots. This bright spot puts this person here. versus teams that won, it's a lot harder to look at. This is what separates these teams.
I'm going to make an argument for GSG IOTA to be in this next spot.
Okay.
Mainly because we, again, don't have a lot of info. We
Right.
have one game against a team that wasn't connected for half the game. So I don't think it's fair to put them any higher than you won the game, but that's bare minimum.
And honestly, the game had its moments where there were some instances where like, okay, this is actually closer than you'd expect.
Yes.
And that's what I was going to say. We've talked a lot about how specifically the bot lane of IOTA was struggling.
I actually had Eden's Blazing Star put there, but that was because they did drop a game to Glacial.
Yes, they would be in my spot if GSG had, in that spot for me, if GSG had won a 2-0, where
this is not a knock on Goon Squad Gaming IOTA. This is more so they did not get to show us much because their opponents were in a very bad situation.
Yeah,
they only got to play one game, and we have not seen much. I expect them to be much better than this.
Yeah, you've got 3 returning players that won ZGG on that team last split. The one hand is role swapping, but Terriermon is at worst a lateral move for one hand in the top lane. Like Terriermon is a great top laner. Could even be arguably an upgrade over one hand in the top lane.
It's different styles, right? One hand was much more team focused, whereas Terriermon is much more lane kingdom focused.
They both love Gangplank. I will say that.
That is true.
God, that champion.
But Sejuani's gonna love top lane right now.
The question mark is squad fam. I think we can probably safely say that. I mean, talk about not having an exception player, but having someone who's actively in bronze on your roster is. I mean, I think the guy is much better than being a bronze player. I've watched him play. I've watched scrims, but you have to at least put a question mark there, right? Like you kind of
absolutely. As the person who was a bronze support on a top tier team, right? Like I ran as the bronze support to winning ZGG with Feed the Dream, right? Sometimes what is able to happen for players like Squad Fam, and it's not immediate, is you are able to just go, screw getting better, screw ranking up, let me do exactly what this team needs.
Yes.
And I think sometimes that's super valuable.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's what Squad Fam does for the team is they just play around the team. They don't like ego themselves. It's like, oh, I'm just a plat player like stuck in bronze. That's not their attitude. It's really just I'm going to pick what I need to pick for the team and play and make the plays I need to make for the team. So.
Absolutely. And sometimes that's what works out because a lot of times you end up with players that are trying to assert themselves, either just showing off that they're good or trying to impress or to get talked about on this show, as we have seen many times.
Right.
So, Eden's Blazing Stars, though, we have at number 5. I think that's fair. They probably have the weakest opponent out of anyone here, and they did drop a game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dropping a game to E-subs is always even when the E-subs are good, it's still scary because it's a new person. They're losing bans. Like you're getting your champions, so why aren't you winning? Right? You know.
And looking at it, it seems to be that one of those things, right, where I know that I was this way in top lane, right, where I'm going to struggle when people put up a fight, right, or they don't play into exactly what I'm comfortable in. But if somebody plays into the exact situation where I'm comfortable in, it is just absolutely over, and there is nothing that anybody can do about it. And it's in the loss, it looked really, really rough for Eden's Blazing Stars. But when they won, it just was absolute destruction.
Yeah, on the loss, it looks like in particular, Eden, I think it's Praetor in the top lane on the Jax had a very rough time into the Nasus.
Yeah.
But then when Glacial tried to run back the Nasus, he's like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to take a bruiser. I'm not going to try and fight you. I'm going to take a tank. I'm going to be a beefball and Mundo. And he absolutely plays phenomenally that game and looks like the MVP of that game.
Yeah.
Sure. And just being able to change your style and say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to play this way. This is what the team needs. This is what I'm going to do. And it worked.
Edian Praetor is a player that I'm going to be watching all split because they are a Echo mid one trick. that has swapped to top lane for competitive play. And a lot of people, this is something not necessarily Echo Wintrix swapping top, but like people swapping top to play in competitive is not an uncommon thing. And especially as the overall strength of top laners in the IBS scene has been relatively high as it has been for the past 2 splits, players like this can often suffer a lot.
So now we're into what I would actually say are the hard choices. For
This
me,
is where
at least.
I
top
think the
teams.
next
think the
one
4-1
is
pretty
also
easy.
relatively easier.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it's Tenebris Esports Aeon.
Yeah.
I'd say is next.
That's what I had down was.
I think the
Tenebris.
top 3 are the hard ones.
So to me, 3 and 4 are set, and 1 and 2 are set. I just don't, so like I think that Wooper and Tenebris are 3 and 4, and Rev X and Team Syndicate are 1 and 2. I just don't know what direction.
I actually have Wooper at 2
I could see that argument,
because I know them because they scrim like 3-4 days a week. Like this team plays together with the same players. Like if you go on gangster.gg, you will see their team name straight down the week.
Right.
Every single week.
I really like. I know that like again going off week 1, to dropped a game, and these other teams didn't. So like you could just make that argument that they are a worse team. I really like this team though. I really do. I think that their jungler, like their jungler assist count is kind of nuts. Like they just are putting up so many. It seems like the jungler is literally everywhere. I want to watch one of their games live and not just post game so I can see it for myself. But let me get their name right. Is it Merrick?
Yep.
Yeah, Merrick. So they look like they're everywhere. Their top laner, Tristana FTW, also looks like they're crazy good. So maybe it was a one-off thing, but I like the numbers of both of those.
Merrick did really well in that series.
What's up?
I said Merrick did really well in the games that I was watching because since the Blue Water stream had to end early because they FF game 2. We went and watched I was in the Aegis general call watching the Psy games.
So I can concede that Tenebris based on this week needs to be 4 though. I can get behind that as much as I want.
Also to note about Tristana FTW is they're actually a role swap. They're mainly an AD carry.
I didn't realize that.
He's a little bit. I think he's a little bit of both.
But
I'm just going off the fact that his top 10 in solo queue are all AD carries.
Yeah. I just like a strong jungler with strong solo laners is what what this team has, and that is a really strong IBS team generally.
It generally is, and it's one that's difficult to deal with because IBS is so bot lane centric overall. Like the IBS meta, if you will, is bot lane centric 5v5 team fights. So when you have teams that don't play to that identity, it's rather interesting to see how they do because sometimes they just blow up. And sometimes they are really, really difficult for teams to deal with.
Yeah.
I have that Wooper 3.
What do you got, Arts?
Oh, go on.
I was going to say, from their roster, the top that Tristana, FTW, and Merrick were the best players on that roster from Thursday night.
Yeah.
Like, Scythe bot lane won. But if it wasn't for probably the biggest meme, if you know anything about that game in game 3, of Star going top lane for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, just pushing top lane while they ended the game.
Pushing
that was Friday. My bad.
Different game.
Different game, but almost the same thing.
So what do you guys? So you all are. So I have Wooper Academy as 3rd. Are you all pretty?
I am on the same thought there, and my main reason, and this is my main argument for them 3rd, even though Rev X dropped the game, is that you look at these games and there is really, at least from the match history, no business for these games to go this long.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm trying to
look it up as well.
get my thoughts straight.
That's my main argument, right? Like that's really it, and it's also unfortunately, week one, and I'm biased against players that I know. Am more familiar and have more reasons why RevX and TD Syndicate should be above them than I have reasons that Whooper should be above those teams.
And we're looking
I
at a
think
30-minute
Whooper
game one and a
absolutely came out with a
40-minute game
solid
two.
week one, and it'll be interesting to see what they do off that. Definitely going to keep an eye on their bot lane with Asian Soul Sniper. He
Right.
seemed to have a really strong series, and I'm curious to see how he matches up against some of the other strong AD carries in his division. And I think, like you said, having that strong of a game, but having it take that long to close out is a bit concerning. So it'll be interesting to see where they move forward from there. And I think that's the main reason they're being held down at 3. Saying held down at 3 like that's a bad thing to be ranked 3rd out of this entire list.
My biggest question mark is the reason I have Whooper at 2 is because my biggest question mark is still going to be Fritz. Like, I can't trust Fritz to be a top mid laner.
And
like the man is like literally a flip of a coin every game. Like, you're either going to get, a good mid laner, or you're going to get literally the person that loses you the game. Like, there's no like in between ever with Fritz, and I can't like trust him to put that team top 2 and ahead of Whooper. That's just my argument on it.
I can see where you're coming from based on history, right? In that same way, right? That I think that there are teams that if we go based off history and potential and that kind of thing would be higher, right? But if we just look at week one, he did okay, right? The game that he lost, he wasn't the only bad factor on RevX. It's not like it was just like specifically one person that had that result.
So what would you say of looking at it as quality of wins, right? So RevX did drop a game, but based on where we're at right now, I think we're valuing Sunset Ravens decently higher than Iconic.
Yes.
It might not be enough to make up for the one game loss, though.
Iconic is the team we have ranked the lowest, considering they are the only one. The teams below them did not get to play all their games.
Yes.
Right. That's a good point.
And then that leaves TD Syndicate at the top. TD Syndicate is going to be a top team. Like, there just is no way around it, right? On Super Square, in particular, is one of the very many TD team carry junglers. This is a team, for better or for worse, the other TD players might not like me saying it. They haven't liked it in the past, right? But this is a team about the jungler. If the jungler is doing well, the team wins. If the jungler is doing poorly, the team loses. And now, there have been times where I have said that about TD teams and have been wrong. Example being World's Finals, right? But in general, I want to see more out of the other players so that I'm not sitting here going Super Square and Friends, or the Syndicate of Super Square, however you want to try to make this punny.
With TD Syndicate, if you do not have a plan to deal with Super Square, you are going to lose that game. Yeah. If you give him 100%. Mordekaiser, you are going to lose that game. Just, that is what there is to it. I've played against this guy on multiple occasions, and every time we come in like, okay, here is our plan not to deal with TD, but here's our plan to deal with Super Square.
Well,
and that's what it needs to be.
I think TD also has one of the best mid laners in this entire league. I think Lemonsap is really good at mid lane.
Absolutely.
In terms of like an IBS level. But this is also one of those teams where I think they have a very questionable bot lane. I don't know how good Crockpot is at ADC. I've only ever seen him at the mid lane. But
I've seen him at top.
I've seen him top.
But because he played mid lane for the Shogun 2017 team, that's how I saw him.
Okay.
And then, but from personally playing with Rex, I don't think Rex is that good as a support.
That's Rhymes, not Rex.
That's Rhymes. Rhymes is solid.
Is it not Rex?
No, that's Rhymes.
It's Rhymes.
Rhymes is the starting support?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're starting, but they were the one who played this past week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going. Yeah. It's fine.
the
Rhymes is a
simple,
good. Rhymes
yeah.
is good.
And I know that they use 2 different top lane subs, so there's questions about this roster, really. But if you don't have a plan for Super Squared, you're not even playing the game. Like that's it, we've seen teams like this in the past, right? TD, a lot of them are TD teams. That's a kind of their niche, right? Of the carry jungler. If you don't have a plan to deal with the carry jungler, you don't get to start playing. Once you have a plan for that, then you have to start dealing with Lemon Sap. Then you have to start dealing with Rhymes and whoever else ends up with this roster, right?
Yeah.
This is a team that is coming in super strong and is probably going to be strong through the end. And it's hard not to look at TD Syndicate, particularly after week 1, and not go, this is a reason that they were one of the favorites coming in.
TD Syndicate almost has, like, when you're riding a roller coaster, there's like a you must be this tall to ride the ride. They have a you must be able to deal with Super Square to put up a fight against us.
Right.
So this is our order for now. And I'm
For now.
going to spring something on us.
In a week.
No, I'm going to spring something on us now.
Oh, okay.
So this has been, in order, our power rankings purely based off of week 1. We have gone out of our way to make decisions specifically just to deal with the data presented in week 1. So I'm going to read this off. TD Syndicate, Revolution X, Whooper Academy, Tenebris Esports Aeon, Eden's Blazing Stars, Goon Squad Gaming Iota, SNC Sunset Ravens, Feed the Dream, Goon Squad Gaming Psy, Iconic, Hyperion Galaxy, Revolution Anarchy, Subatomic Gaming Antimatter, formerly known as Knights of Thunder, we believe from the organization Knights of Oblivion.
We were all waiting for it.
And Glacial Academy. Now, do we have any disagreements when we look at this purely from week 1?
It's hard to make the argument. I think that RevX is better than TD Syndicate, but based off week 1, I would be proven wrong by that. So
I think the biggest argument was at the bottom, where it's from Feed the Dream to Hyperion. I think that was probably the hardest part for me to figure out who went where.
The one thing I will say, if we're going purely based off of week 1, I know Glacial has so much roster instability, but you can't put them under 2 teams that literally did not play.
That's true.
But,
That's true.
a little biased.
Listen, I get it. They have a history, but they haven't played.
We did call out the bias.
We did absolutely call out the bias.
Just put them under Galaxy.
We're just going to put them right below Galaxy, right?
Yes, that is fair.
I will agree. I will agree with this. So that brings us to the next question, the question that I didn't prepare you for. If we just are power ranking, period, now.
Oh boy.
How do we change this?
Anarchy is in the 3rd to 4th slot.
Yeah, Anarchy moves up a lot. I think.
And this is going off based
This is based off our own personal opinions, knowledge that we have from scrims, knowledge that we have from players from other leagues. How do we warp this? Because right now, as it stands on the screen, this is just week 1.
And I definitely know that Anarchy
overall,
and FTD move to the top 6.
Yeah, Anarchy and FTD move up. I'd say RevX takes first place at overall.
I want to see where Whooper ends. I think Whooper has a chance to keep going, but I'm not convinced they'll stay in the top 3.
So actually, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna put this into 3 categories. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna, just because we have a lot. I'm gonna take this away. We're gonna have 3 categories, and as I'm trying to format this, we're going to y'all are gonna have time to think. We have 14 teams, right?
Yep.
So we're going to have 4 teams that are the top teams. We are going to have 4 teams that are middle teams. And then we are going to have 4 teams, or the rest of them, the remaining 6, that we will refer to as bubble teams. Is that reasonable? And now, in the categories that we put, they're not going to be in any particular order.
Okay.
We're just determining which teams are going where.
So it's 4-4.
4-4-6.
4-4-6.
Correct.
Huh?
Okay.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the likely logic in some ways, as often happens in early weeks, right? The teams that are in the remaining group of the bubble teams are teams that are just going to feel less strongly about, you know what I mean, than teams that are in the other two categories. Yeah. It's just unfortunate. But this list is going away, and I'm
I
going
already
to
have
put up
my.
the new categories.
I got my top 4.
I have my top 4, mid 4, and now I'm working on my bubble. And
well, bubble is just everybody else.
Yeah, everyone else. So.
I think I most. I think I've got.
So, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the bubble? Do we want to start with the mid? I think starting with mid is the most interesting.
Is this basing just off week 1? Like
no, this is based on our personal opinions, whatever information we have, whatever thoughts we have, whether we want to base that off of org, personal biases, what color underwear they wear, whatever kind of thing.
I'd say it either makes sense going top down to bubble or bubble up to top. Either way.
Okay, so we're going to start with top.
Okay.
So I'm just going to guess, because y'all were thinking while I was formatting and explaining. I'm going to guess here that we have TV Syndicate.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to guess that we have Revolution X.
Yep.
And then I'm out of guesses, because I can sit here and say, from the point of the position of moderating this discussion now, we could have Whooper in here. We could have Revolution Anarchy in here. We could have Feed the Dream in here. We could have potentially Eden's Blazing Stars. We could have Tenebris Esports Aeon. We have a lot of teams that we could put in here.
I personally have Iota and Anarchy.
I have Anarchy and Whooper.
I have Hyperion Galaxy and Whooper.
So I think it's fair to say that we can put Whooper here. Because two of the three of you have Whooper Academy. I think with Whooper, the way that Whooper Academy showed up in week 1 in particular, especially given that they're players that we're not familiar with, Ark's telling us about how much they're scrimming, that it is a completely reasonable statement to say that they are a top team. Especially when their primary dig that we have against them performance-wise in the league is it took you a little long to close out games.
That is fair. I'll give you that.
I think that's definitely a reasonable statement to put them there. So I'm going to demand that we put Whooper here. So that leaves us.
So now we have a spot between
Anarchy, Hyperion, and Iota.
I would accept Iota in there before. Well, that's really close.
Yeah, like it's between Iota and Hyperion for me, and I gave Hyperion the edge because the only lane I felt like the mid lane was kind of even. Like even though OMG was on Lux, it was still an even lane almost. But
I'm fine putting Hyperion there.
The bot lane won, and that's the only reason I'm putting them ahead is because I don't know how the top sides actually are when it comes to facing a team because they didn't really get to showcase anything. And the same thing with jungle because the other jungler was DCing every 2 minutes.
So what is your response to this, Bickle? Because I know you had Anarchy and Iota.
Anarchy and Iota I have. Obviously, I've seen most of these teams scrim. I've scrimmed against some of them. I've scrimmed in for some of them. So I've seen how these teams overall work. Yes, something we have to take into account is the fact that we haven't seen Hyperion's full squad and how they'll work. So yes, their loss against GSG doesn't mean as much in putting Iota above them. But I think the fact that Iota has been a squad with so much synergy for so long, I have faith in that top side of the map, in that pre-built synergy to help carry them. I do have the likes of Hyperion in the mid tier, but I can see where you guys are going in the fact that the bit we did see out of Hyperion was really solid, especially out of the bot side and the mid. The parts that weren't so solid up, or the parts that didn't have internet.
The same thing that gets me excited about Whooper and makes me think that they are a top team is the same thing that gets me excited about Iota. which is a strong jungler in Timic and strong solo laners in OMG and Momentai.
Yep.
Timic is so underrated. People never give him enough credit.
I always have to make
Area
up.
Why did I say
I-
Momentai? I'm a
So I
dumb
think it's a reasonable thing to put Goon Squad Gaming Iota here. Like if I have to break the tie, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to put Hyperion Galaxy in this category when Iota won and the existing
This is irrational.
familiarity that Iota has.
No,
This
we're
is
not doing
somewhat
irrational
irrational.
predictions yet. That's next week.
It's still somewhat irrational, right? And I'm
Yeah.
always biased against my own team, so I'm never going to break this tie in the favor of Anarchy. So
So now we're on to mid tier.
mid tier. So I think
on
Hyperion Galaxy here, just because we were talking
Hyperion
about them in the
Galaxy, Rev
Revolution,
Anarchy.
Revolution Anarchy,
I
I'm
think
gonna
Sunset is absolutely there.
SNC Sunset Ravens.
And then
Feed the Dream.
I think Sky is there also to me,
I put
but
PSG.
and FTD also belongs there, I think, which is tough.
PSG, FTD belong here. I think that you could also make an argument for Tenebris Esports, Aeon, in this section.
You could.
So,
Yeah,
despite the fact that esports.
So
beat PSG,
before we talk about the fourth slot, right? Is there any disagreement on these three teams? Hyperion Galaxy, Revolution Anarchy, SNC Sunset Ravens.
No.
SNC
at all.
Sunset Ravens is really close to Psy and FTD in my brain, but I still think SNC is just like slightly over the edge.
Sunset Ravens is kind of that, like, I agree with you that it's like two of these three teams are going to be in mid. It's just which one falls down.
Yeah.
Like the team I'm most confident out of those three to put in mid is Feed the Dream. But I'd probably say it's Feed the Dream and SNC. So, but
my counter argument is, I know mid has beaten Puffin, so that gives me the mid lane edge between Feed the Dream and GSG.
I'm
And
always
then-
worried about. Oh, sorry, Alex.
And if it wasn't for the fact that there was an incident in game 2 between two players, mid was what, 18, he was 18-3-5 in that game, and they lost. And I'm pretty sure if that incident doesn't happen, they win the series 2-0.
I think that's fair. I'm only FTD loses points for me because I'm always worried about like mental. Like
Yeah,
Tamed
that's
is
fair.
obviously a good player, but Tamed is also known to be a passionate player, right?
There are always passionate players, right? You need them on a team, right? The passionate
Right.
players are what pull you out of your funk in that own way, right? It's
right. So I think I'm a little scared of FTD kind of having infighting, but I think with people like Mystic and Chubby there, that is probably unlikely to happen. But
those are very level-headed personalities.
Yeah, Chubby is one of my favorite people to see play.
He's the best person.
My favorite people I've ever played with.
He's the best person in like amateur esports. I'm just going to give him that title.
If Fairboy Kale didn't rank out, he would be my top one, but Chubby's right there. Because Kale is like if you ever talk to him, he is the nicest person. Like he will never flame anybody in his life.
So I think who has to break this?
So what's interesting is because, like, for me, the team that I put here more than either Psy or Feed the Dream is Tenebris Esports Aeon, for me personally. But that's me personally. I think that for me,
What team?
Tenebris Esports Aeon.
I don't know that team.
That's the team that beat
Tristana for the win, Merrick Bastion.
They are the team that beat GSG.
They're the team that beat GSG.
No, I'm just. Oh wait, I thought you were talking about Knights of Thunder, and you didn't.
No, I was not talking about Subatomic Gaming Antimatter, formerly Knights of Thunder. We believe from the organization known as Knights of Oblivion. We were not talking about them yet.
Oh, hard mistake to make. Honestly.
It happens.
No, I think Tenebris is absolutely a strong team. They probably deserve a spot higher up. Again, we've talked about Merrick, Junk, and Tristana being a great triangle, just like Iota, just like Whooper. So they probably deserve to be higher too. That's just hard. This is so hard.
So this is what we're gonna do for the sake of time.
Bears for 2 teams.
It might be dropping Snack Bears. Honestly,
I think
he dropped Snack Bears to bubble.
I think we dropped Snack Bears personally. If it was me that I was writing this without the consideration of any of you, I would drop Snack Bears for Tenebris Esports Aeon and Feed the Dream.
Hey, the Snack Bears people that are listening, you don't deserve this, but we're gonna do it.
We love you guys. You look great week 1, but it's too many teams.
I also don't think that Psy deserves to be in bubble, but this actually just might be a really strong group of IBS teams.
I said this in preseason in our last episode, and I mean this sincerely. This might be the most competitive IBS league ever.
Because people aren't ranking out. Rank out.
When you look at the mid teams, you're like, oh, how is this team not top? How is this team not top? You look at bubble. How is this team down in bubble? Then you look at like, oh my god, there are so many good teams. I'm just excited, and I'm so sad that only 4 teams from each group can make playoffs.
Only 8 make playoffs, and that's so really, really tough.
So that throws Psy, SNC,
Goon Squad Gaming,
Eden.
Psy.
Like, what's really rough looking at playoffs, 3 of the top 4 teams we have are in the same group.
Yep.
And I'm honestly okay with Psy being there because Pac is probably going to be the ADC.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Spoiler. Whoop-de-doo. And if this tryout goes well, I'll have a different top laner. So, my main goal, I said it last episode, was Psy is going to have a different roster. Like, there was guaranteed roster changes because I was trying to get the ZGG people off the starting roster of BOL.
Tier 3. Yep. I'm missing a team in my head.
Iconic.
That's the one. And this is the thing, right? This is the thing. It is so easy for this to change, right?
You're missing 2 teams still.
I know I am. I'm talking as I'm typing. Because I'm trying to spell subatomic in my head.
Why don't you deleted it all?
Yeah.
You should have copy and pasted it and already had it pre-put.
I should have copied it into a notepad.
Hey, we learn this is Jank stream, so it's fun. And then I think Glacial probably doesn't deserve to be at the bottom either, but they are the most apt for roster instability. So we're gonna, I think, just throwing them there.
They're the team we do not know much about. As time goes on, they could prove us wrong.
And unfortunately, Subatomic Gaming Antimatter, formerly Knights of Thunder, we believe of the organization Knights of Oblivion, is here primarily because more than any other team, even more than Glacial Academy, we have the most unknowns.
Yes.
Yep.
Like, I know from firsthand experience that OST is a fantastic jungler. I don't have much more here, right? Like, I don't mean that as an insult to anybody, and this can go very, very wrong over time, right? Like, this is where we are right now. We're going to do irrational predictions next week, and things are going to get even more absurd.
I look forward to our bubble teams beating our top teams this week and proving us completely wrong.
It's what happened in ZGG, and it is destabilized my entire power rankings over there.
I got to finish up my power rankings for this week for BOL. Throw that out.
Yep. So just for clarification for everything, this was recorded Monday, 8/15. So any roster changes, drama, competitive rulings, or general shenanigans that affect this between now and Thursday, we don't know about it. It's not our fault. We recorded this ahead of time so that there's this lovely content for all of you.
We didn't know that Leper and Bickle were going to get in an actual fist fight now. That's happening.
We're going to fly out and do this. This was originally a pay-per-view plan for later in the season, right? $10 to watch it. But this is actually real now.
Exactly.
want to come up, or we should do a which amateur people like boxing matches would people pay to watch power rankings one day. So
God, that'd be amazing.
That would be hilarious.
Toxin and Swag.
Give me Downfall and Cherry.
I think I would just pay to watch Bully and Shanghai fight each other. Honestly,
That would be
Headliners.
interesting, given what Shanghai does for a living.
Yeah.
With that, though, folks, we are out for the evening, and I hope you have a wonderful set of games today in BOL.